For Comedy Hype News, I'm Dom Smith. When you're a comedian, storytelling is a necessary skill you need in order to be successful. Painting a picture in your audience's mind and only using your words isn't something that everyone can do. As a comedian, your timing, the way you build tension, and the payoff all have to be on point. Richard Pryor, Dave Chappelle, and Bill Cosby are some of the genre's greatest storytellers that literally have you hanging on every word they say. These comedians make the sound effects and they lose themselves in the characters they play. Eddie Murphy showed off his storytelling abilities in Delirious and Raw, telling audiences about growing up poor, old family cookout stories, and stories of when his mom used to beat him. Eddie's words and act-outs were so vivid, you knew exactly what he was talking about. It appears that storytelling runs in the Murphy family because Eddie's brother Charlie shared the same gift. We all know about Charlie Murphy's true Hollywood stories about Rick James and Prince. Working with Eddie for so long, there's so many stories that have gone untold, and Charlie Murphy was just getting started. His stories were so detailed and naturally hilarious, we could all listen to Charlie Murphy talk all day long. Here are some of Charlie Murphy's greatest stories. First up, we have That's My Brother. Charlie used to work security for his brother. Charlie took the job a little too seriously, and in an unaired version of Charlie Murphy's True Hollywood Stories, he explained what security is supposed to do. As a security guard, you're supposed to separate your feelings from the actual person, but because Charlie was protecting his own brother, not letting his feelings get in the way is something that he struggled with. Because of this, Charlie identified himself as the hothead security guard. Charlie explained that there were times where him, Eddie, and the rest of the crew would go from club to club and women would follow them. The guys at the club didn't appreciate them taking their girls away, and they often had some sly things to say about it.
And I used to always react to cats like that, you know? As soon as they do that, I'd be like, what? Bah! And I'm rolling on the ground with this.
Charlie took his job way too seriously and wanted to protect his brother at all costs. Whenever he would go watch Eddie do comedy, he even wanted to protect him from the people that weren't laughing.
But because he was so good at it and I was so proud of him, I was like if you didn't laugh, I was real emotional. I probably would f you up for not laughing. That's how I felt.
Charlie felt like everybody should be laughing because he thought it was funny. Another example of Charlie being too protective starts in a restaurant where Eddie and Charlie were eating in the same restaurant as former football player Darryl Stingley. Stingley was a wide receiver for the New England Patriots before his career was ended after a spinal cord injury. Apparently, the women that were with Stingley were paying a little too much attention to Eddie.
Eddie Murphy, that punk ass nigga, shit. I got money. The f y'all keep looking at this nigga for? F him. Buckwheat. Niggas corny anyway. I don't like Beverly Hills Cop.
According to Charlie, Stingley went on and on. Charlie got up from the table, walked over, and threatened him. Stingley didn't say one word after and even lost his appetite. Charlie said, "I'm sorry I ruined his meal, but he's not ruining mine." It was all stemming from, "That's my brother. I'm not having it." Next up, we've got Terrence. If you've read Charlie's book, The Making of a Stand-Up Guy, you'd know as a teenager, Charlie used to roll with the wrong crowd. When he was 16, he became friends with a guy named Terrence and the two went shoplifting. Charlie told him exactly what to do and how to do it, but Terrence ignored everything Charlie said and got caught. About a month later, the two were hanging out again, began play fighting, and Charlie soon found himself in a headlock. Terrence said, "Okay, Charlie, this is a real fight." Terrence was still upset at Charlie, but some friends broke it up before it got worse. Charlie swore revenge on Terrence. One of Charlie's friends was dating Terrence's sister, so one night he found himself outside of Terrence's house. Charlie said, "All right, this is it. I'm gonna whoop his ass right now." When I confronted Terrence, he pulled out a pistol, pressed it against my forehead, and with every intention of killing me to protect himself, pulled the trigger. The round misfired. Charlie said he thinks about that moment every now and then, and he knew he had cheated death. Unfortunately, Charlie would still get into a lot of trouble in his youth and wouldn't learn his lesson until later on. A teenage Charlie Murphy struggled to find himself. He eventually became a member of the 5 Percenters. According to Charlie, the 5 Percenters believe that the black man is the original man, and Earth is symbolic of the black woman. Men who subscribe to its beliefs call each other God. Charlie even unofficially changed his name to Omar Allah. Around the same time Charlie became a 5 Percenter, he also joined a gang called King Pythons. Charlie loved being a part of something and the camaraderie and sense of fellowship that the gang provided. One day, Charlie was in the barbershop with a few of his friends. One guy pulled out some cash and started counting out loud, 100, 200, 300, until he got to 2,000 every time. Charlie decided to follow him one day into the park and waited until he went to the bathroom. Charlie told one of his friends, "When he goes into the bathroom, you follow him and go take a piss. I'll come in, put the gun to your neck like I'm gonna rob you. You take out all your money, then I'll turn to the dude with the $2,000 in his pocket and say, you too. He'll be looking at me with the gun on you, and if you act like you're horrified, he'll be horrified." The plan almost worked until another guy walked into the bathroom and saw what was going on before they could make their escape. 2 days later, that same guy bumped into Charlie at the park, pulled out a knife and asked where his cut was. The guy threatened Charlie, but he noticed that the guy was wearing a shirt that said "Peace God." Charlie realized that the guy was a fellow 5%er. Charlie talked his way out of it by saying, "Hey, if I'm a black man and you're a black man and you and I are supposed to be God and the white man is the devil, why are you trying to kill me? You ain't white." Charlie said that messed him up and the guy stopped to think about it. Once again, Charlie had cheated death. When Charlie first got out of the Navy, he went to go see his brother in Los Angeles. Charlie was in the Navy for 6 years and a lot had changed. Between 1978 and 1984, his brother had got on Saturday Night Live, released 48 Hours, Trading Places, Delirious, and Beverly Hills Cop. Eddie was now an international superstar and was surrounded by an all-new crew. Eddie's crew looked like they all had money and were living lavishly. Charlie had lived on a ship for the past 6 years and only had 2 outfits and fell out of the loop when it came to style. Eddie told him he could wear his old clothes. The problem with that was Eddie had become a famous person. When someone is a famous person, they can wear things that other people should not wear. I soon learned that people tend to keep you honest when you're wearing clothes you should not be wearing. They'll say things like, "Charlie, why you got that green glitter jacket on? Where you performing at?" One night, Charlie wore one of Eddie's glitter busboy jackets. Charlie thought he was fly. When they all went to the club, everyone's eyes were on Eddie. When they caught a glimpse of Charlie in the glitter busboy jacket, they said, "Who's that behind Eddie? I think that's his brother. What does he do? He looks like his magician." He compared himself to boxing manager Butch Lewis. No shirt, 5 gold chains, and a glitter green busboy jacket. Charlie was a victim of the times when it came to fashion, as he also explained how he used to perm his hair without reading the directions. Charlie permed his hair once a week, but you're only supposed to do it about once every 4 months. He had no gloves and never used neutralizer. For reference, you can see Charlie's hair in Prince's True Hollywood Stories sketch. Charlie himself said he committed some fashion atrocities that he still can't live down. His fashion crimes felt so ridiculous and shameful, he went to his mother's house and burned every photo of him from back then. In another unaired version of Charlie Murphy's True Hollywood Stories, Charlie told the story of someone who used to work for Eddie back when he was on SNL. Not using his real name, Charlie decided to refer to that person as Daryl. Now Daryl was a drinker. One night when everyone went out to eat, Daryl walked in intoxicated and started insulting everyone at the table.
Cause Daryl, even though he's black, he insults like a white man. And one of his favorite insults, I mean, he could say this like nobody else. He's, "You fucking moron."
After lunch, they all went back to Eddie's house and started talking about the incident. Charlie was telling another friend how hard it was for him not to do anything to Daryl. As Charlie was talking, Daryl walks up from behind, grabs his head, and the two start fighting. Daryl told Charlie,
Turns around and goes, "Fuck you fucking moron."
Charlie ended up knocking him out, but he felt bad because Daryl wasn't a stranger. The two had grown up together. Daryl got back up and still wanted to fight. Charlie finished him off, and some of the crew got in a couple punches too, but Daryl kept on coming back. Soon, Blade Barkley stopped by Eddie's house. The night before, he had a fight with James L. Toney. Charlie thought it was weird seeing the fighter at the comedian's house the day after a big fight. He should have been in the hospital instead. Blade's face looked almost as bad as Daryl's. When Blade walked in, he said, "Yo, as bad as my face is, man, whoever that cat at the gate is, his face made my face feel better. I feel better." One night after coming back from the club, the crew decided to get some barbecue. While waiting in line, the food was beginning to run out and some gang members got upset because there wouldn't be enough food for them. As one of them started complaining, Daryl turned around and called them all morons. You'll see a lot of things once you start spending time as Eddie Murphy's bodyguard, surrounded by the most famous people in Hollywood. Charlie Murphy's stories have given us a lot of sayings and catchphrases that make us remember the stories years after they've been told. Phrases like habitual line stepper and his vivid descriptions made him an overnight star. Charlie Murphy will go down as one of comedy's greatest storytellers, rivaling Pryor, Cosby, and Chappelle. It's a shame he started doing stand-up at the age of 42 and his life was cut short, because Charlie Murphy was just getting started. Stay up to date with the latest news in comedy by subscribing here to our YouTube channel and follow Comedy Hype across all social media. For Comedy Hype News, I'm Dom Smith.